We'll look at some examples now. So to begin with, when we look at an argument or an article, look at the key words to get a sense about what the themes that might be looked at developed in this argument. And if we go into this case by Andrew March as a study on political Islam, we can see that he identifies the seminal works and the main concepts very early. He then looks at how this is applied across different countries and is relevant in many studies, and in the case of political Islam that makes sense for him to bring in that comparative analysis. He identifies some innovative and new research trends and interdisciplinary elements to his analysis, and then starts to move into his thematic synthesis, which is the substance of the rest of the article. In this example by Busby and others, award-winning work on climate change and insecurity, begins with a very good hook, identifying the relevance and pertinence of his of their research, why we should be looking at it. Then quickly moves into identifying what the key kind of research questions are, and thinking about how to analyze this massive empirical material on climate change and conflict vulnerability. The article then moves to review a range of host of studies and then identifies a gap very clearly. That also introduces an original methodology, which they argue is both significant and original in their approach, and that's how they're filling that gap. In this case, my Howlett et al. There is a clear purpose of the argument is to review trends in recent literature on indigeneity and neoliberalism, and this is an example of an argument that is really about substantiating these claims from different fields and making the point that this perhaps counterintuitive idea can be connected together. So that the whole article is very much a literature review establishing this point. Now, Carolyn Ball, who wrote a PhD here in Haas and then got it published after it being very, very favourably received, published in 2008. Let's have a look at how she introduces her chapter 1, which establishes the idea of the conceptual arguments that she'll be looking at, of peace building and tracking this agenda through a study of many of the UN reports and so forth that have tried to look at this issue. And the second idea that she introduces is the concept of the rule of law, which she also grounds in practice and policy. She demonstrates how that idea has got traction and introduces a research gap, and also then surveys the challenges and the critical policy debates, all brought together in her thematic review. And in this regard, she's already producing original work, and she extracts themes such as political will, public demand and coordination out of this literature to demonstrate that she has established a research gap and she has thesis aims. This then is restated in terms of the significance and originality, and then when she outlines her structure and her methodology, it clearly follows from the earlier work that she introduced in terms of the structure of the whole argument. So there's a very nice connection, a very nice logical connection between the literature review and her work. So to sum up, what we've been talking about today is literature reviews and establishing the argument that they are integral to the success of academic research. Be careful not to generate a list or merely a summary of the field, you're better to think about your task as being one to critically synthesize, evaluate the potential, and potentially reconfigure the relevant literature in and across your topic area. Most importantly, a literature review provides the formal opportunity within your dissertation to justify your research question and establish your credentials as an advanced scholar in your discipline. While your literature review must demonstrate depth and breadth of understanding, it's also a valuable focusing tool. So you will be reviewing large amounts of material, but in narrowing it down and making the assessments and judgments as to what to analyze, you will be demonstrating your capacity to produce a focused and viable research, which is a very important question for the panelists in your confirmation. They want to know that the project is in fact achievable. You do need to identify a research gap and propose realistic strategies for trying to fill that gap. In other words, a methodology. Your deft handling and prying open of these small gaps, fissures in the discipline, is where you are able to assert these elements of originality, creativity, nuance, and distinct characteristics of your significant and original contribution to knowledge. Hart talks about this as the research imagination, and ultimately the impression that one needs to get from a literature review is the sense of you being a specialist who understands your field, who engages respectfully and in a deep way with the debates and the material in your field, and who has an original contribution to make in a clear and coherent manner. Thanks.